Hello, beautiful peaches. Welcome to the Macros, Metabolism, and Motivation Beautiful Peach podcast. I'm your host, Caitlen, here to help you find your most unwavering love, beauty, and kindness for yourself inside and out. I will be teaching you nutrition and macro tracking secrets, reverse diet and metabolism health tips and tricks, and motivating the heck out of you so you want to leap up and start conquering your goals right away. I am here to help bring you the light at the end of the tunnel so you can discover that self-love and truly become the most confident, beautiful peach possible. So grab a pen and a piece of paper, or if you're in the car at the gym, go ahead and bump up your volume just a little so we can drown out those gym grunters next to you, and we can go ahead and dive right in. Don't forget to snag your completely free high-protein macro cookbook by simply doing a 5-star rate and review on this podcast. All you need to do is submit a 5-star rate and review, then send us your name and email through the link in the show notes so we know exactly where to send your cookbook. By submitting your 5-star rate review, this will also automatically enter you into the weekly podcast macro calculator giveaway. Every week, I give away a copy of my See You Schmidt macro calculator to one lovely winner who leaves an awesome 5-star rate and review. This winner is announced every week on my Instagram story as well as my newsletter email list. So leave that 5-star rate and review, and I'll see you in the episode. What is up, my beautiful, beautiful peach? Today's episode is going to be absolutely amazing. We are going to be walking through a client case study. One of my clients in BPM, she's eating 700, actually, she's now eating more, but when I wrote this, 780 more calories without the weight regain associated with eating more food. When I wrote the notes for this podcast episode, that's what she was eating. She's actually now eating even more, and I had somebody who hit over 900 calories more in her reverse diet, maintained her weight range. However, specifically for this episode, we are going to be talking through this one client, and she is down 10 pounds, which is absolutely amazing. I am going to walk you through the process that we took in BPM, since many of you, and you specifically, might be wanting to reverse diet and wanting to heal your metabolism so you can actually lose the weight for good, find the food freedom, and really get into a space where you are taking your life back. So without further ado, let's dive on into this episode. Eating 780 more calories without weight regain, a case study. I love food. I love food. I love to eat. I love that food brings people together. I enjoy cooking food. I enjoy food on the holidays, which I am very excited for the holidays coming up. And I just have been on this cloud nine of all the good food, all the good travel, all the fun things. And now we're going into even more holiday season, and I just cannot wait. But I think that many women in the world, and specifically in the diet world, end up in a place where they are stressed about food, even though I think that 99% of the women in the world, maybe there's like 1%, at least to some extent, like to eat and like food. So today I'm going to talk about the specific client because I know that she is a big ol' foodie. She loves to eat. She loves her wine. She loves to travel. And so we clicked on that immediately. She had listened to my podcast and it felt like she was just like listening to a friend and she was nerding out. She realized that I love wine and she's like, all right, this is just great. And I'm like, we are going to be two peas in a pod. Anyway, talking about this particular client, eating 780 more calories. But we started to talk specifically about what her past weight loss history was, what her diet history has been. And her story may be very similar to yours and may have some similarities here. So her very first memory of dieting was actually back in middle school. She remembers she would work out in the basement in middle school. She did her very first diet back then. She didn't remember the specific diet that she did. She just remembers that's when she started to really have a hyper awareness of food and a hyper awareness of what she was eating. And from there, she found herself in a space where she was just endlessly struggling with having weight loss and keeping it off. She was having the weight gain, weight loss cycles. She had tried in those 20 years, ever since middle school, every diet she could possibly think of, some including Weight Watchers, something called Body for Life, keto, low fat, no fat, only for breakfast, overdoing it with cardio. She tried tracking macros, but she was really struggling to see results. She was tired. She was burnt out, tired of the diet. She was tired of eating bars as meal replacements, tired of avoiding social gatherings in fear of getting off track, tired of working her butt off just to not see any results. And she was tired of obsessing over food. And on top of that, she shared with me, even though she's in the space where she is just absolutely burnt out, she had the intention of reaching out multiple times, but had different internal excuses that she actually walked me through. And she was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't create these excuses. She once went to reach out and then went on or had some vacations coming up. And she was like, nope, it's not the right time, which I personally love to work with clients when they are traveling around the holidays, because that's the best time for us to fully embrace you living your life the way that you want to live it and also seeing the changes happen. I like to make macros and tracking and seeing changes a very fun experience. So we do not have the stress around tracking macros or anything like that. It's just, I like to make it fun. Of course, we have to be hitting our macros. And also there are methods where we can enjoy vacation very freely, enjoy the holidays, the parties, the cookies, the fun cocktails, all of those things. But she mentioned to me that she had had these previous excuses that came up over and over, not the right time, not enough time. She had nervous issues. She had lost the trust in herself because she had done so many diets in the past. She was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to follow through. And the beauty of the way that I teach macros is that when you truly, when you're following my signature method of making sure that it's sustainable, maintainable, educational, and enjoyable, it is impossible for you to not see changes happen because it's fitting so naturally into your life. Now, all of this to the side, she had all these fears and she said, I'm done. I'm tired of it. I want to stop making excuses. And she's ready to put the focus on herself. That statement right there is, I'm ready. I am ready to make the change. I am ready to put in the work. I am ready to show up for myself. That right there is going to be the game changer. And she said this too. She said she realized she needed to take care of herself because she wants to take better care of those around her. And it's so incredibly important because I've mentioned this in past episodes that when we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't properly take care of those around us. Something also, as I'm going through this, because I'm going very specific to this particular client, if you are resonating a whole ton with everything that I'm saying about this client, and you reach out to me and you say, hey, I really resonated with podcast episode blank about the client that you talked about, I want to hear your personal history because your personal history may be very similar to somebody else, but it's still yours and it's still going to have some similarities and differences. So I like to hear it all. I had somebody who applied to BPM and she mentioned one of my podcast episodes and she said, I have the same exact story. I want this. I'm in. And I'm like, let me hear it from you. Like, give me the full story. I don't care if it's so similar to someone else's that it seems identical. I want to hear everything because I'm sure there's things that are going to be different and things that we're going to start talking about that will start to come up and will bring out these memories that I will actually need in order to support you at the best. Now, moving back into the podcast episode, all of my courses, all of my coaching, all of my free trainings, my webinars, everything that I am going to teach is going to be based around my signature framework, making sure that things are sustainable, maintainable, educational, and enjoyable. But the very first thing that we did with this client, once she was officially a client and we had taken a deep dive and everything, is the very first thing that we're going to want to do is make sure that we are diving into the sustainable side of things. Sustainable meaning it needs to be something that is going to last long term. If it's not going to last long term, you will fall off the wagon. It does not matter how much willpower you have. It does not matter how long you think you can stay away from carbs. It does not matter how long you can stay away from the social settings. It will not last. There will be a breaking point where you will fall off that wagon. And the problem is not you, my sweet peach. The problem is not you. I want you to write this in your notes. The problem is not you. The problem is not your lack of trust in yourself. The problem is not you. You can gain that trust back in yourself when you're having a solution that is following this signature framework. And when it's allowing you to take your life back and to see that it can fit naturally into your life, which then you start to see changes, which then you start to actually feel free. And you're like, wait, I do trust myself. The problem was the diet industry. So the problem really is that you hitched a ride on the wagon. That's not taking you where you want to go. It was taking you to low carb, which made you feel restricted. It was taking you to low fat, hard to keep up with, low sugar, making you binge, replacing meals. You're starving and you miss real food. And so we really want to make sure that when it comes to your macros, specifically your game plan and your overall intake, it's going to be sustainable, custom to you, fitting into your life, feeling good to your metabolism, your body, your goals, So the very first thing that I did with this client, it's really important that I want you to do as well, whether that's with me, whether that's with anyone else. I want you to make sure that you're taking note on this, is you want to make sure that your personal metabolic health and data, your personal goals that you are using to create your macros, but they need to be fitting to you as an individual to make sure that it's sustainable. So if someone tells you that you need to eat 1,200 calories, you've never dieted before, general population listening to the podcast episode probably has dieted, but just for the sake of this example, you go to your trainer, they pull up MyFitnessPal, they say, hey, let's go ahead and put in your height, weight, age, activity factor. Maybe don't say it to their face, but if you were all of a sudden told to eat 1,200 calories and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so low, I'm not going to be able to keep up with this, it's not right for you. Okay, it's not right for you. When it comes to the starting steps, which is why I like to look at your specific macros and make sure they are custom to you, because these numbers are the start of the foundation. This is the foundation that we will be building from. So if we have starting macros, if we have a starting goal of something that's not actually going to feel good to you, it will not last. That foundation is going to crumble, not going to work, okay? So the very first thing is making sure that our starting step is sustainable. It's something that's going to feel really good to us. One thing that's really important to note is when we are in a space and we are restricted and we are eating 1,200 calories because we have been dieting for a long time, your foundation might need to be close to that point because we don't want to all of a sudden put you at 2,000 calories and see that weight regain. But the beauty of a reverse diet, which is how we heal our metabolism, is we're slowly but surely increasing the amount that we're eating, which allows us to heal our metabolism, to get more food into our body, and we don't stay in that restricted place. So you might be in a place where you're eating 1,200 calories, you're completely miserable, and also we don't want to just jump you to 2,000 calories. However, we do want to get your macros into a place where you have adequate carbs, protein, and fat, so you're eating this food. And then we also start to adjust those macros, so we're getting that intake up and up and up. So we'll be adjusting from there. It'll be amazing. We want to make sure that we have that sustainable set point to start. Next, once we have that set point, we want to go into something that is going to be maintainable. And I do personally see a difference in sustainable and maintainable, because maintainable is something that's going to fit naturally into our life, meaning we are not going to be putting ourselves into a diet box. We want to make sure that if we're doing something that doesn't allow us to eat chocolate or have that guilt-free glass of wine, we will want to throw in the towel because we are unhappy. And with this particular client, once we had our macros golden, they felt good. We're like, all right, this is beautiful. We started to take a deeper dive into her relationship with food so we can take a dive into the maintainable side of things and get her out of the space of good food, bad food mentality, out of the restrict binge cycles. I know adding in the foods that we are considering off limit previously can be very intimidating. And it gets very scary because we have built this diet box of rules from many, many, many different diets. We have created our own diet box, essentially. And everybody's diet box is going to look different because everybody has a past diet history. And which is also why it's important to pay attention to each and every single one of everybody's diet box is going to be different, meaning we get to start taking the diet out of the box, healing that and moving on, leaving it out, emptying that box slowly but surely in a different way. So with her specifically, we introduced carbs back. So that was the number one thing that we tackled first, is the confidence around carbs specifically. And what we were actually doing is, let's say that we were eating 300 carbs, just for the sake of this example. We went to keto and all of a sudden we're eating 50 carbs. That means you have taken away 250 grams of carbs. So the problem is not the fact that the carbs are gone. The carbs are not the issue. The issue is that you are in a calorie deficit, which slowed your metabolism. And for this particular client, we had to get over that mental hurdle of carbs not being what creates weight regain. And in order for us to actually get over that, what was really neat is as she started to track her macros, she started to see her body responding. And she was starting to feel better, which allowed her to start to say, hey, carbs are okay. This is okay. So we got over that mental hurdle, but then we also had the others. We had to get back our stressors of the many other good food, bad food. No more stress around having a glass of wine. No more stress over the sugar. No more stress over going out to eat. No more stress over vacation, travel. I challenged her to actually start to introduce certain foods at home that she previously thought were off limit. And from there, we had the confidence at home. We started to introduce her going out to eat with her friends again, and her being able to go and order the burger if that's what she wanted, and going out to eat and ordering what she wanted. So we're really starting to work in all of the real world scenarios that were previously off limit or previously caused stress, creating that maintainable approach because you're able to actually live your life and you're able to actually do the real world scenarios while still seeing changes to your body. And also, we can start working on that relationship of food, giving the trust to the macros and saying, I trust that I'm going to start eating these carbs. I'm going to put the trust in my macros. I'm going to put the trust in my reverse diet, release some of that control because the control is now going to the macros, which is beautiful. It's the way that our body works. And also, you can start eating the food that was previously off limit, knowing that you have the confidence that your macros are going to lead you where you want to go. And it's really nice because it allows you to take the stress factor away of, is this right? Am I doing the right thing? Is this going to work? To, yes, it's going to work. Now I just get to focus on my relationship with food and start working on that mental side of things. It's important to really start to become aware that it's going to be a slow and steady process, but that's the way we want it to be, okay? I want to interrupt this oh so lovely podcast episode of mine to let you know that the Food Freedom and Macro Guide is available to you completely free. This guide holds the answers you need to end the macro mystery and learn why nothing else has ever worked long-term. With macros and your human factor, you can have your cake and eat it too. Live your life instead of wasting every day hyper-focused on all of the stress on what you can and cannot eat. This Food Freedom and Macro Guide will give you clarity on what macros are and the role that they play in your metabolism. You'll learn why macros are so important to keep your body functioning properly and how we actually use these and your human factor to see the changes that you want. You'll be able to discover the anti-diet world and how we use macros to eat the food that we love every day. If you're ready for endless food freedom and want to take a deep dive into macros, this guide is for you. Go ahead down to the show notes and grab your guide today. Now, this is actually where the third piece of my signature framework comes into play. So we have sustainable, we have maintainable, we now have educational. We want to start learning the what, the why, and the how behind the food that we are starting to bring back into our life, behind what are fats, why do we eat them, how can we eat them without the weight regain, going out to eat, how can we create this game plan, giving the education behind it. Because as we're having the education of why it's okay to eat the pasta, how you can wake up the next day and feel really amazing in your body, it's allowing you to start to not only trust in the macros, tracking your macros, and trust in the reverse dieting because you're learning how to do those at the same time. And also, you're actually starting to learn to trust food again because you're understanding and having the education of why it is so important to your body. And so as you're going through the process and as you eat the carbs, you're like, wait, I totally see how this is actually positively impacting me. I see why I should be eating this and still see those physical changes and feel really free in my body. So when we have the education behind what we're doing, that allows us to take this next step of saying, yeah, I feel amazing. I understand what we're doing. And now I can lean back, dive into continuously adjusting my macros, and you can have the confidence and the freedom of not having to go back to Google again and again. And my big goal in BPM too is specifically BPM is teaching you how to adjust macros on your own. So that's why it is so incredibly important for me to educate you behind the what, the why, and how, and actually specifically adjusting your macros in BPM. So that's where we take a really deep dive because BPM is my high level. And the course that they get in there is literally teaches them step by step how to adjust macros on their own. But I think what's really important is whether you're someone who decides you want BPM or not, you can still follow this approach of making sure you have a sustainable, making sure you have maintainable, making sure you're getting the education behind what you are doing. And then last but not least, making sure it's enjoyable. Whether that is you working with me, whether that is you working with somebody else, whatever you may be doing, I really challenge you to follow this framework because it will allow you to go into a space. If you stay with this framework, these 4 pieces, it'll allow you to go into a place in this next chapter of your life. If it is not enjoyable, it simply will not last. That is something where life is meant to be enjoyed. We are meant to go out to eat, to enjoy the holidays, to do all of these fun things. So if we're being told that we can and cannot do things, that we are having this fear around eating out, that we are stressed around the holidays, we're unhappy, we're not doing something that we want to do. Joy comes from within us. Joy comes around food. Joy comes around social settings. If we're doing something daily that is making us unhappy, and miserable, we're stealing the joy from ourselves. So bringing it back, when we've had these new experiences that she previously would say no to, but she was excited about and she wanted to do, I had her do them. She wanted to go on a weekend trip with the girls, go to Napa, do it. Yes, let's do that. She wanted to throw a holiday party with all the sweets and treats, do it. She wanted to go out to a potluck for a football game. Yes, let's do that. We want it to be an enjoyable process to make sure that's going to be a long-term change, okay? And this is what she did that she mentioned actually when I told her I was going to do this podcast episode. And she was like, hey, I want you to hear my notes, add it on in there however you can, if you can, and I want to read this to you. So she let me know. One of the biggest things that she did even before applying to work with me in BPM, she committed. And she said, I recognize this is not going to be a quick fix. It's not an overnight process. She was ready to commit to that long-term change because she was done living in a life of restriction and binge eating. Second, she did say hiring a coach. So she has written down hiring a coach. And I would like to say, whether that's me or whether that's somebody else, please find someone who is knowledgeable, who has education-based program. I teach my beautiful peach clients, right, back to that educational piece. I teach them everything that I do as a coach, how to adjust macros on their own, because I have that much belief in education. I actually talked about this in one of my past episodes, but I was at the gynecologist and we were just talking through human metabolism, macros, women's health, like all the good things. And I'm asking her questions. Obviously, she's giving me the education behind things. I'm like, oh, yes, I'd love to nerd out about these things. Thanks for explaining this. And then she was like, tell me more about the metabolism. And she has tons of clients who are eating very low intakes and they are not able to see changes happen. I'm going to start referring people to you because obviously this is not my expertise. In my mind, I'm thinking, like, her and I are like, yeah, this isn't my expertise. Like, I'm asking her questions. She's, oh, yeah, like, that's not my expertise. Like, I love to learn. Like, she's asking me questions. And it's that point of the awareness and the acceptance that we might not be the expert at every single thing in our life. And it's okay to ask for help. And so I love this conversation that I had with my doctor. And then I also love that my client brought this up and she was like, ask for help. Just get a coach because it's going to save you so much more time. But outside of that, she said, this one's really important. She said, keep your diet blinders on. There is a lot of information in the world, okay? A lot of information. My suggestion is if you want to change, like make a list of all the things that you don't want to do. So all of the things that made you unhappy, write down why they made you unhappy, keto, low fat, 21-day fix, intermittent fasting. Make that list and write down why they made you unhappy. So if you ever find yourself accidentally backsliding into one of those, you can look at that list and you can say, no, I don't need to go backwards. I get to go forward. And then you can create that game plan from there. So to do a recap as well, because I really want to make sure that you are following this framework, we want it to be sustainable. So when you're coming up with your foundation for your macros, we want to make sure that it is fitting naturally for you and it is feeling good to you and your body. Number two, we want it to be maintainable. If it is something that is going to tell you that you can or cannot do something in your life, you can't go out to eat, you can't drink alcohol, you can't travel, you have to restrict leading up to the holidays, that's not going to work. If it's not educational or you just get told because I said so without giving the actual background information, you want to know the what, the why, and the how so you can understand the way that your body is working, because when we understand the way that our body is working, it allows us to take those steps forward and to trust in our body making those changes happen. And then number four, we want it to be enjoyable because we have one life, and if it's not enjoyable, it will not last. We'll be falling off the wagon so darn fast, and that is not what we want. So those are the steps that we took with this particular client. And the last step that we did with this, which technically is part of the education piece in my framework, is we actually were able to, once we had that maintainable approach, she was feeling really, really good. Step two, right, maintainable, feeling really good about tracking her macros, feeling really good about eating out, eating the foods that she loved, is the education also of learning how to adjust her macros, really starting her in on her reverse diet. And because we were able to really make sure that she was feeling so free around food and so free in these real world scenarios, her binge eating went away. She had no stress about eating out. She was really able to hit her macros pretty well and pretty easily because it felt so good to her. And that allows us to really go through that reverse diet and to get her up 780 more calories while seeing those changes to her body, okay? And that's what's going to make the difference, is making sure that you are committing to it and you are following that approach. You're making sure that it's going to be long lasting for you. And that's what's going to get you into that next chapter of your life. And If you have any questions for me, I always say, please, please, please DM me. I am here for you because I want you to know that it may feel hard now, but oh girl, it's going to feel really good when you're on the other side and you're feeling free around food and enjoying your life. So with all of this, I am always here for you. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye, my beautiful peach.